It's 4 o'clock on a Monday, and you know what that means. It's time for another exciting episode of Taxi TV Live. Woo! As opposed to recorded. Welcome to the big show, and thank you, fake band. Thank you, fake audience. For those of you who are new to the show, there is our audience, the iCarly sound box thing, which also does... never use that. And then, yes, the old duck quack. Love that one. All right. My volume's a little high. Let me get that down a tad. So, let me get the chat room open. There you are. Hi, guys. How are you? Last week I had a root canal. Sorry, I had a show that I was going to do, which was this show. 2 shows ago we did Road Rally preview, and I was getting research from you guys as to which panel ideas that you liked the best, and that was very valuable feedback indeed. Thank you so much for that. And then I didn't get to the Ask Michael Anything About Anything segment. And there were some people that were, maybe ticked off is too strong a word, but there were some people that were upset that I didn't get to that segment. So I was going to do that last week. And then I had one of these all weekend long, so I had to go get a root canal last week. And I've got to say, for any of you that live in the Los Angeles area and you need to get a root canal, go to Dr. Imad Basali, who is in Sherman Oaks, I believe. He was amazing. They had to go in through an existing crown to get to the roots, and even the injection, that first injection, you know, the one you always get right there where your jaw hinges, that's the one that always hurts. That barely hurt, and I actually nodded out in the dentist's chair while I was getting the root canal. No gas, no other drugs, just Novocaine or lidocaine, whatever they use, and they propped my mouth open with the dental dam, and there you go. It was a piece of cake. So thank you for the kind wishes, everybody. Jazz Stan says, hi, Toothless Mike. No, actually, he saved the tooth, Stan. But now I'm Rootless Mike. So, I get my wallet out of there. So today I'm going to do what I planned on doing last week or 2 weeks ago. And I'm going to also start the show off with a song, which we haven't done in a little while. And this song is called Wicked Summer. It says Robot Voice in parentheses, and it's by Lorenzo Tyrone. So let's start out the big show listening to a piece of music and see how that goes, and then we'll proceed with the Q&A segment of this week's episode. So this is going to be Wicked Summer. That was Wicked Summer by, I'm probably mispronouncing this. I hope you're watching this show so you can correct me, but it looks like Lorenzo Tyrone, I hope. Okay. All right. Let's start out with the obvious, which many of you guys were catching. It just needed more bottom end. It sounded pretty thin. The recording wasn't great. It wasn't like the worst I've ever heard, but it could have been better. Oh gosh, I'm trying to think of the song. The Wall. Huge band from the 70s. Help me out here. I can't believe I'm drawing a blank on this. Yeah, there was a lot of mid-range in it, Robbie. Who is the band? I am drawing a total blank. This is what I get for being old. Somebody help me here. Pink Floyd. Okay, it reminds me of Pink Floyd a little bit. Somewhat because it's got kind of a plodding pace to it. And that simple 4 on the floor bottom end or kick drum. It didn't have much bottom end, but it did have, you know, another brick in the wall. Thank you. It's got that going on, and the group vocal on the chorus lent itself well to that. However, I heard this working. First of all, the title was really, really great for film and TV. If I'm a music supervisor and I'm working on a coming-of-age movie, let's say we've got a movie about somebody who just graduated high school and they're going to college in the fall and they're planning on just having a, you know, ripping it up summer. And I'm looking down a list of song titles and I see Wicked Summer. I'm going right to that one because it sounds promising just by the title alone. And then lyrically worked pretty well for that. However, it definitely needed more bottom end. The intro, if I made a note that said the intro is in 2 segments and it was far too long. I would go right into the song practically, maybe a 2-bar intro, definitely a shorter intro. And the intro to me didn't really set the song up well. An intro should pull you in and give you some sort of hint at what you're going to get, telegraph what the song is going to be like, and this intro didn't really do it. It felt like it was just killing time until the song got there. So I would say it definitely needs a better and shorter intro. I also think that it felt too slow and was somewhat plodding. And now I'm going to go back and play a bit of it. Think of it with more bottom end and definitely more tempo to make it more danceable. And here's the intro. And it's like, this sounds really spacey, right? What's this about? And then you've got the rhythm track kind of fading up underneath this weird stuff. And now it's got this second section of the intro. And so we were 34 seconds into that before the vocals started. I think a lot of people wouldn't have hung out that long, and they would have been gone by then.
It's gonna be a wicked summer. Can you see it? Time to flip it upside down. We've been living.
Okay, so now we've got this really cool, interesting unison group vocal, but it's got kind of a unisex, genderless thing going on, and I think it might be better served. It's just my opinion, but I think it might be better served. It sounds like this is maybe leaning towards the female vocals being stronger. So if it were for a coming-of-age movie for young ladies, probably work well for that. Just by the nature of the song, my instinct, the old producer in me, says that if I were doing this, I probably would have gone for a male unison vocal stack, or primarily male voices in there. I think that there are more, who knows, I should probably look at a statistic, but just from my gut, I'm going to say that there are more coming-of-age movies that are guys getting in trouble and doing outrageous things and being chased by the police and blah, blah, blah. So I would have more male voices in there for that reason. I love the hook in the song. The chorus vocal, the whole chorus idea, everything about that is incredibly hooky and incredibly strong. And then when we get to scrolling up to about 2.5 minutes into the song, there's a little breakdown coming up here.
Love is taking over now. Love is taking over.
That should go to a rap beat and have a rap vocal over it. Not a rap song vocal, but a rapped vocal over it. I think it'd be a lot cooler. I'm going to go back a little. And also, on that lead up, it's got kind of a build going into that section, but it could be, yeah, it went back a little too far. Could be a better build. It could be a big drop and then go right into like a big, obvious drop and then go into a rap beat and a rap vocal.
Love is taking over now.
Here's the build.
Love is taking over.
And rap.
Just wanna have some fun. Yeah, yeah.
What a great place for a rap. It's just crying out for a rap.
Summer, 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 summer.
And
The flow of it.
to me, it's just dying for a rap there. But I would say overall that this song has a ton of potential and would get a lot of film and TV use, feature film use especially, if it just had better bottom end, shorter, more pertinent intro, more male vocals in the stack, almost kind of a drunken sense to the male unison vocals, I think would lend itself well to that. Anyway, so there you go. Thank you very much. Where did my sheet go? Here it is. Thank you, Lorenzo Tyrone, for sending in Wicked Summer, and I hope you guys benefited from that. All right. Now we are moving on to the Q&A section of the big show for today. Okay, so some of the stuff that I mentioned in the email a couple of weeks ago, I want to get to that stuff now, and then I'm going to move on to some questions that you guys posted on Facebook, and we're going to take some questions live that are coming in via the chat during the show. So, what is the screener's mandate when they sit down to screen your music? I had a really good conversation the other day with a gentleman who wasn't angry or ticked off, but he was a little curious maybe slightly frustrated. He didn't know yet if he'd gotten forward or return on the $125,000 ad thing. And he said his frustration, I think, was that the listing gave some references. By the way, the listing also said that it was kind of anybody's guess, that we knew the spot was about night frisbee playing and that it was a beer commercial. So we put some examples of typical beer commercial music in the listing. But it said that the agency itself really didn't even know. It's kind of one of those they'll know it when they hear it things. So they were casting a wide net, trying to, and it's rare. Usually they're looking for music after they've done the final edit or very close to the final edit of the commercial, and they're right up against it time-wise looking for the right music. This one they had a little time, and so they were casting a wider net going, all right, what would work well under some night frisbee playing? So we gave those beer examples, and then a couple days before the listing deadline, I believe, I was sitting at home and I was reading some forum posts on the taxi forum about that listing, and I think I added something on the forum or said something on the forum that said, you know, I just went online and I searched YouTube for videos of people playing night frisbee. And lo and behold, there was this awesome video of these two young British guys, probably, I don't know, 18 to 20-year-old guys, who swore like sailors, profanity coming out of their young mouths, but they went out and played some night frisbee. And they put in some music, a couple pieces of music, maybe two or three, in that homemade video of theirs. And a couple of those pieces of music got my attention. I went, wow, you know, that kind of works. It works pretty well. So it made me realize something. Rather than thinking of beer commercial, think of night frisbee. Who obviously most beer commercials are made for people in, you know, demographic is young 20-year-old males primarily. Night frisbee playing. So here was a great example of some actual music that demographic, if these two guys represented an entire demographic, which certainly they don't, but the music worked. And so I suggested that people watch that. And we actually got to extend the deadline a day or two on that because I think the deadline might have been on a Friday and we weren't going to ship it out till Monday anyway, something like that. So we extended the deadline and I added that additional information. It was just my opinion. And again, it was just a guess because even the branding agency didn't really know what they were going for. And I'm sure that Taxi wasn't the only source they were going to look to for music. I'm sure that they've worked with composers on other stuff, so they'd reach out to 5 or 10 composers that they normally work with or add music houses. I think, you know, a lot of people in advertising don't really love to use music libraries, although while they kind of had disdain for music libraries 5 years ago or so, seems like they're warming up to them now because there is better music in music libraries, thanks largely to you guys. So anyway, just there was no way to know. So this person said to me, what's their mandate? What are the screeners looking for when they sit down? And I said, on this one, it's just wide open. Is the music good? Is the music actually great? And could you see it being used in a scene with a bunch of cool, fun-loving, 20-year-old, probably males, out playing night frisbee? It could have been electronic that could have worked, could have been acoustic that could have worked, it could have been purely rhythmic, it could have just been taiko drums or something. You know, the range of possibilities was fairly broad. Just my personal guess is that they would probably end up going with something that maybe didn't sound like a typical beer commercial, but yet would still appeal to a 20-something male demographic. Could have been guitar-driven rock. Don't know. But it probably would have been rhythmic and not been floaty and delicate, you know, something you'd hear in a spa. Not going to work. Now then again, maybe they have a scene, and ultimately they could have a scene in the commercial where there's a slow-mo, you know, where it's a fast, you see the guy in real time throwing a frisbee, and then as soon as it leaves his hand, it goes into slow-mo until the guy catches it on the receiving end, and then it speeds back up. So maybe some sort of EDM that's got a breakdown that they edit or happens to fall in that spot where the slow-mo floaty frisbee thing is. I don't know. Possibilities are wide open. So that's the mandate for that one. And I had a great talk with the guy. I actually enjoyed the conversation a lot. The mandate in general for the taxi screeners when they sit down is they read the listing. We ask them to read it a couple of times and to really pay attention to what the listing asks for. If they need to hear references, they can either listen to the references in the listing or we'll dig out references for them. They are people who are chosen because of their expertise in that particular genre of music. And the mandate is find music that you would walk in and hand to the person who's looking and say, there you go. There's something that's really, really great enough to be used for whatever you're asking for and is on target. So great and on target. That's been the mandate since day number one. How do I get more music forwarded by taxi? That's another commonly asked question. Pay attention. It's quite amazing to us how many times that the screeners will go to our head screener or the guys who are giving them their listing assignments when they check in for a particular shift. And even though the listing says they're looking for instrumental stuff, if I had to rough out an estimate, I would say somewhere in the 1 to 5% of the music that's submitted will have vocals. Even though the listing says the word instrumental 3, 4, 5 times in the body of the listing, people will still send in music with vocals. Or conversely, they'll send in instrumental stuff for a vocal listing, or the listing will ask for chill wave, which is kind of trippy, floaty music, and people will send in stuff that's very, very beat driven that is clearly not chill wave, or it'll ask for acoustic singer-songwriter and they send stuff in that's got a bunch of synthesizers in it. So the best thing you can do to get more music forwarded is, number one, pay attention to what the listing says. Reread that sucker like 2 or 3 times. Listen to the references. And then, maybe most importantly of all, read the listing carefully enough to kind of understand, are they saying that they want stuff that's exactly like those references? Or does it say could be found on a playlist that would also have these other artists? Or would be on a playlist of somebody who's a fan of bands or artists or songs like this? So in other words, there are ways to read between the lines. I mean, there's no lines to read between. It'll flat out say, could be on a playlist for people who are fans of this artist. Doesn't mean they're looking for stuff that sounds exactly like the references. The references, imagine the references being on an iPod or an iPhone or whatever of somebody. If they liked these 3 things, would this piece of music that I'm submitting also appeal to that listener? That's the bottom line. Sometimes they'll be a little more direct and give you some sort of indication that they're, here's a good example. When they say that they're looking for stuff with a certain BPM, or they're looking to match the tempo, oftentimes that means they've already cut the commercial or they've cut the scene. And the beat of the music is really important because it goes with the edits that they already did. So they need, number one, a genre match, a style, an attitude match. All those things are important. And maybe most importantly is they need something that matches the beats per minute. Now, that said, don't send in, if the examples are all, like dance pop or EDM, really beat-driven commercial-sounding stuff, don't send in something that's acoustic guitar or ukulele and matches the BPM. Some members will actually say stuff like, I can't believe you guys didn't forward my song or my instrumental because it matched the BPM. Okay, but it didn't match the style or the genre. So just listen to what the listing says. Are people? I'm still showing good bandwidth on my end. I don't know. Some of you guys are saying that you're frozen. I don't know. Matt, let me know. All right. Some people are getting buffering. I don't know. The meter is showing up nicely here, so hopefully it's not buffering too much. All right. Why the vocal can be very important even on the most stripped down demos. Okay. Vocals are often critically important even on stripped down demos, because if you've got a great song and a mediocre, like a C level or a B or even a B plus vocal on a song, it's going to be less, the person listening to it is going to be less impressed. You could have a really rough demo of an incredibly well-written song with great lyrics, great melody, super catchy, big chorus, and nothing more than an acoustic guitar and an incredibly powerful vocal, and it's going to help sell it. You know what? Let me look around. All right, you guys have seen this before. This is a song that I've played on Taxi TV a bunch of times. It's called Here Comes Goodbye. This was the original demo, and it was written by Clint Lagerberger and Curtis Sly, and it got cut by, I can never remember the band, Huge Country Act, and I believe it was a hit record. I'm just going to play you like a verse and a chorus of this so you can hear how important a great vocal is on a simple demo. This is nothing more than a piano vocal demo. Let's see how my levels are. Yep, good to go.
I can hear the truck tires coming up the gravel road, and it's not like her to drive that slow, and nothing's on the radio. Footsteps on the front porch, I hear my doorbell. She usually comes right in. Now I can tell. Here comes goodbye. Here comes the last time. Here comes the start of every sleepless night. The first of every tear I'm gonna cry. Here comes the pain. Here comes me wishing things had never changed, and she was right here in my arms tonight.
Rascal Flatts.
But here comes goodbye.
I'm going to let it run so you can hear the bridge and the chorus on the end. It's just great.
I can hear her say I love you like it was yesterday, and I can see it written on her face that she had never felt this way. One day I thought I'd see her with her daddy by her side, and violins would play. Here comes the bride, but here comes goodbye. Here comes the last time. Here comes the start of every sleepless night. The first of every
Right there, man.
tear I'm gonna cry. Here comes the pain. Here comes me wishing things had never changed, and she was right here in my arms tonight. Here comes goodbye. Why's it have to go from good to gone before the lights turn on and you're left alone, all alone?
Brings it back down.
Here comes goodbye. Here comes the last time. Here comes the start of every sleepless night. The first of every tear I'm gonna cry. Here comes the pain. Here comes me wishing things had never changed, and she was right here goodbye. Ooh.
All right. I've been in the industry for 40 years, maybe 41. That is the single best piano vocal demo I've ever heard in all those years. And if that doesn't make it obvious why a great vocal can help sell a song. I mean, you see that in so many taxi listings, and people go, well, I'm just a songwriter. I'm not a great singer. You know what? That guy happens to have an amazing voice, and I don't know his name, but he's an artist. I believe he might have even gotten signed to a record deal. Certainly a top demo singer in Nashville. I've read something about him somewhere. But he just nails it. I mean, the song was written with Rascal Flatts in mind. The writers had a mission. They knew Rascal Flatts were looking, and they thought, okay, what can we write that would appeal to them? And they wrote the song, I think, like in 1.5 sessions. And it was written in a day or two. And they brought the right guy in to sing the vocal, and he gave the lyrics so much meaning. So yeah, you could have a voice that's pitchy and gravelly. You could take that approach to that song. It doesn't have to be this guy with this amazing vocal, but it's got to convey the emotion that this guy did. And it could be, Here Comes Goodbye. It's pretty heartbreaking. So a gravelly Tom Waits kind of vocal could potentially work. So don't just count yourself out because you don't have the vocal range and honey dripping capability that guy has. But the vocal is important because it helps sell them on the idea of cutting your song, and it all goes back to emotion. Does it make the hair stand up on the listener's arm? Because they won't care if it's a piano vocal demo in most cases or many cases. They won't care about a lot of stuff. If the melody's there, if the lyrics tug at your heartstrings, and the vocal makes the lyrics come alive and gives them meaning and just wraps you up in that emotion, whatever the emotion may be, there you go. So that's why the vocals are important. Why a particular piece of music gets forwarded for one listing and not another? We get this question all the time. I think somebody actually asked that today, said, want to know the backgrounds of the A&Rs. In particular genres. It seems to me that many screeners don't understand many of the genres they screen. I've seen taxi screeners reject songs that have been picked up by other A&Rs for the exact same project. Not really clear if that person means the same, that he submitted or he or she submitted the same song twice for the same thing, and one screener forwarded and one screener did not. That is troubling to me. So that takes me back. The person says, why a particular piece of music gets forwarded for one listing and not for another? Well, in the case of one listing or not another, is you could have this song, as great as that is, and it is great. If it were submitted for a listing, I'm trying to think of a good example, where they were looking for something uplifting and positive and anthemic, a taxi member might hear that vocal in that song or have something like that and say, my song has an anthemic chorus, I'm going to send it in. So if they sent in this song, because the listing had the word anthemic, and this is what members frequently do, is they latch on to one requirement or one word or one adjective in the listing, and they go, my song is anthemic. Yeah, but that's not uplifting. That's heartbreaking. This is about somebody, watching the end of a relationship unfold. Not uplifting. Anthemic, yes. Uplifting, no. So that's why it could get forwarded for one thing. If they were looking for songs about the end of a relationship, loss of love, those basic lyric themes, and they wanted something that was anthemic and powerful for that, that would be a direct hit. If they were looking for something positive and anthemic, not so much. So there you go. And I want to go back to the rest of this person's question. Oh, by the way, for any of you who've never looked at it, go to the Taxi website, and up in the blue menu bar at the top of the page, I think it says About, and you pull it down, and there should be a pull down on that pull down menu that says Taxi's A&R team. Look at the resumes. It's not like we put those online and we've got other people screening your music. Those are the actual people that screen all the music at Taxi. Give or take, if we just got a new screener a month ago, they may not be on the list. Somebody could have moved to another country and they're not able to work remotely, so they're still on the list and we haven't taken them off yet. But, on the whole, the vast majority of those people on that list are the people who are working to screen your music here all the time. There are no second stringers. There are no interns that are checking it out, and then we say a screener screened it. No, those people on that list are the real deal, and the resumes are mind-blowing. And frankly, it's not just a matter of how good their resumes are. We have to check them out to see how their ears are. We have to check them out to see how their ears are in particular genres, because many people think they're good at a lot of things, and it turns out they're really only good at a couple of things. So we have to figure that stuff out and then put them on the stuff that they are really, really best at. And we have to make sure that they're able to communicate with you guys, even in the shorty listings. Look, you guys want to know, why wasn't I forwarded? Well, can they stick one or two sentences in there that give you the reason why it wasn't forwarded, and hopefully give you a suggestion on how you can solve that problem or make your song or instrumental better. And the person also says in that question, anyway, you could charge $5 for a batch of 3 songs instead of $5 per song. Yeah, and you could go to a Mercedes dealership and plop down 50 grand and drive out with 3 cars, right? In a perfect world, that's the way life would be. You could buy 3 houses for $200,000. That would be an awesome world, and I would love to live in it. Ain't gonna happen. Frankly, we break even if we're lucky on the submission money in versus what we pay the screeners going out. Sometimes, we could lose 5 grand in a year or 50 grand. Sometimes we could make 61,000. But essentially, over time, it's almost always a wash. It's a break even. So, sure, I guess we could do 3 songs for $5. That would be awesome for you guys. But that would mean that we would lose hundreds of thousands of dollars a year. And I'm not in business to lose money. I'm pretty happy breaking even on that process. I would love to be making a ton of money on it, but we don't. But I came up with the $5 fee 23, almost 24 years ago, figuring that $5 a song was affordable. It was affordable for almost anybody, and it was enough of a deterrent that if somebody was inclined to submit 5 songs for something, maybe they would think a little harder. Is this really right? Is it worth dropping, $25 for these 5? Or should I just narrow it down to the 1 or 2 that are really on target? So in-house we call it the discouragement fee. It discourages people from making wild or bad pitches. And it's been working really well at doing that for almost 24 years. Okay, why a hit song might not be a good song for a film and TV placement. In big Hollywood blockbuster feature films, you will often hear songs from huge artists, sometimes big hits from the past. Very frequently, you'll hear songs that are just breaking now on the charts, or were just recently a hit, or are gonna be a hit very soon, and from an artist that is well known. The reason is the movie takes place in a certain time and place, and they want contemporary music for a film that takes place in a contemporary setting. So whenever possible, if they have the budget, they like to put music in there from the big famous acts. Back in the day, part of the reason they did that is because they would make a soundtrack album from the movie, and they would release it, and they would make extra money, create an extra income stream from the release of that record. Doesn't happen very much anymore because people don't really buy a lot of records anymore. But that was part of the motivation for doing it back then. Part of it was to get more butts in chairs. If a movie featured, an example might be Trent Reznor co-scores, has co-scored several films with Attica Ross. There are people that are big Trent Reznor fans, and if they see a movie poster or a movie trailer that the film is scored by Trent Reznor fans are pretty likely to go see that film just because they love his work. So that's one of the reasons. Now, all that said, a song that is a giant hit might not be right for a film because it just doesn't lay out structurally like you would need it to make it easy to edit into the film. Even with editing, it might not work. It could be that the lyrics aren't very universal, that they're too specific about something. You know, you've seen it in a million listings with names, dates, places. You know, like I've said 1,000 times, a song about I Kissed Susie Under the Arch in St. Louis on a Tuesday afternoon. It could be a giant charted hit, but it's going to be worthless for somebody making a movie. So you could have a song that was a giant blockbuster hit, and it just won't work in a movie. You could have a song that nobody's ever heard anywhere on the planet Earth other than the relatives and best friends of the person who created it, could be perfect for the film just because it works with the scene. And that's what music supervisors look for, is what works with this scene. What amplifies the emotion, what underscores the emotion. They watch a scene without music and they try to imagine what type of song, what genre, what emotional quality, what mood qualities would be apropos for that scene. Then they go in search of music that they think is going to work. Then they put it against picture and they watch it. They watch another one. They watch another one. They could listen to hundreds of songs before they pick the one that they think is going to get the producer and director excited, and then play it for them, only to be shot down and have to go back to the well looking for more, or maybe get a pat in the back and an attaboy saying, "Great job." It's time for a sip of Rockstar, which means the Road Rally's coming up while I'm opening the can. Rockstar being a sponsor of the Road Rally every year. This year, the Road Rally takes place November 5th through the 8th in Los Angeles at a hotel right next door to LAX, so you don't need a rental car. You can take a free shuttle, and the rally is coming together awesomely this year. I have confirmed one of the panels we're going to do this year, by the way, is to do a film trailer. We're going to take the trailer. It might vary a little bit, but the idea right now is to take a trailer that's only got like a voiceover and the picture cut and no music, and we're going to talk to the composer and he's going to explain, okay, this is what I was asked to do and here's how I did it, and he's actually going to lay out the music track by track, section by section, until we've got finished trailer music live in the ballroom. So that's one exciting thing we're going to do. We are definitely doing a panel this year on how to collaborate. Everybody, I talk about collaboration endlessly. The people on our forum talk about collaboration endlessly. We're actually going to put some people who are excellent collaborators on stage this year that are going to tell you the actual process of how they collaborate, how they trade files back and forth, how they sync things up, problems they encounter, surprisingly good things that they encounter by collaborating, how distance, you know, two people that are half a world away from each other can collaborate maybe even more effectively than two people that live 2 miles from each other. Because of the time difference, while one person is sleeping, the other person is writing and laying down parts. So there you go. Gonna have a sip now. Refreshing. Okay. All right. Going back, sorry, I was catching up on the chat room there. Here's a great question. How much of a submission are the screeners required to listen to on a yes-no listing as opposed to an S listing, which means that it's screened and critiqued fully? The yes-nos are usually quicker turnaround film and TV related stuff. And the person went on to say, sometimes I bet it's pretty obvious right off the bat that it's not going to fit the listing. That's true. However, almost all of us, even somebody who's not experienced in any way, shape, or form at screening, could easily listen to something, often in 5 to 10 seconds, and go, there's no possible way that this is even in the ballpark of what that listing asked for. However, we feel that the members deserve some sort of answer as to why it wasn't forwarded and what they might try to do to make it better. So they have to listen at least as far as they need to in order to give some cogent feedback like that. If it's just 5 seconds in, I guess the screener could say, not getting forwarded because it doesn't fit the genre that the listing asked for. But they might also hear something, where the vocal was just kind of limp and wimpy and not very effective. And a good screener might say something like, hi, Bob, thanks for submitting this. Wasn't on target at all for the genre. By the way, I noticed that the vocal could have been stronger. I believe if you cut a new vocal that this song will have more success on future pitches. Boom. Now you've learned a couple of things. Not a great pitch, and the vocal could be stronger. So there you go. Here's a very common question. I'm glad it was asked for today's show. I've been wondering what to expect once a piece of music is forwarded and you're contacted by the buyers. In the event there is a potential large payout, I would want to be ready to handle the steps beyond the forwarding to see a deal successfully through. Do you have any tips for me and opinions as to whether to have legal representation ready, etc.? I'm never going to tell you not to have a lawyer. The flip side of that is everybody thinks everybody in the industry is out to somehow screw you. I don't think that's entirely true. Sure, there are bad people in any industry or people that are out. Everybody wants to get a good deal. The buyer wants a good deal. The seller wants a good deal. Let's take this to talk about film and TV. And he says something about potential large payout. So let's say that this is about the $125,000 beer commercial thing that we were talking about earlier. For the Knight Frisbee beer commercial. So 125 grand, that's a big one. There are very, very, very few attorneys in my experience that I think have a lot of depth of knowledge in the film and TV music licensing world as many of us know it today. And the reason I say many of us is that we're not a huge group. We are not a charted artist that's had a platinum record and licensing our song for a big Hollywood feature film. In that case, yes, the manager gets involved, the music attorneys get involved, and the numbers are big. The vast, vast, vast majority of the stuff that you guys are going to experience in your career are going to be instrumental cues and songs licensed for TV shows, the occasional film. Sometimes, we've had Taxi members several, or if not many times a year that get stuff into feature films. But it's usually like a $2,000, $3,000, $5,000 upfront sync fee, not 125 grand, not 50 grand. So here's the problem. I just had this a couple of weeks ago with a member who was a really nice guy. We had a half-hour phone conversation about this. He reached out to a couple of music attorneys that he knew. This is a guy who'd grown up with a father in the industry, I believe, and he knew people that were like vice presidents of big labels in Canada, knew a couple of big music attorneys, and he showed them a contract from a production music library. It turned out to be a very reputable library that we've been running listings for and members have signed to and gotten placements from. All that stuff was true, and this guy showed the contract, which is probably a 2 or 3 pager, to these music attorneys, and they went, oh my gosh, I would never sign a deal where somebody gets 100% of the publishing and gives you nothing up front. That is absolutely true in the world of records and radio music. If you are out there pitching your songs to Beyonce, and you're working with, BMG Music Publishing, or Warner Chappell or Sony, whatever, any of the big publishers, yeah, they are generally not going to ask you for 100% of the publishing without giving you some sort of advance or signing you to a publishing deal where you are in a stable of writers and you are required to turn in, I think, 12 songs a year that you've written by yourself, or 24 that are co-writes. You get paid in advance against future royalties. And those advances have dropped off hugely. Back in the day, I would say, not unusual for people to get $100,000, $200,000, $250,000, advance against future income from a publisher that would then you would turn music into, and they would get 50% of the publisher share, which is essentially 25% of the total ownership of the rights in a song. There's 100% of the master rights, 100% of the copyright or composition rights, and the publishers wouldn't get any of the master rights, and they usually would give you an advance against future income in exchange for what is called a co-publishing deal, which means they get half of the publisher share and you get half the publisher share. In the world of film and TV music, it's extremely common, almost the rule with very few exceptions, that they get 100% of the publisher share, and it's become unbelievably common in the last few years that they don't give you any money up front. We're tickled pink when we get to run a listing. We've got a company we're running listings now for that pays $300 to $500 to buy out the publishing, and you keep the writer side and make money from your PRO on the back end for performance fees, performance royalties. So in this case, this guy, who is an intelligent, nice guy, consulted a couple of music attorneys, and they went, OMG, I would never do that deal. Little did they know they were giving him horribly bad advice, because that was completely and utterly the norm in the industry. So if you're doing a big deal, absolutely use a music attorney. If you're doing a small deal, there are probably, and I'm not saying don't use a music attorney, just make sure that, and if you call up a music attorney and say, are you a music attorney that specializes in licensing music for film and TV? Most of them are going to say yes. Most of them have limited experience that is on those big major songwriter, major label, major big budget feature film. That's the stuff they're used to working on. They don't know anything about little tiny production music libraries that are frequently 1-person to 5-person companies. Even some of the big libraries that might have 100 people working at them and operate out of a high-rise in Hollywood, their contracts are still going to be remarkably similar to the contracts that you would get from a small boutique shop as well. And while I would never say do not use an attorney, I would say that there are probably several hundred taxi members that have already signed deals with that company. They understand the nature of contracts. They know what the range of normal and accepted practices are. So you could reach out to those people and say, is this company on the up and up? And by the way, we do vet them before we run the listings. Is this company on the up and up? And is their contract typical? And then you just have to decide, do I want to do a deal where I give up 100% of the publisher share and I keep 100% of the writer share in exchange for no money up front? If you've just cranked out a CD with 12 songs on it and it took you 3 years to make that CD, you probably don't want to do that deal, because you're going to be really precious about that material. If you're somebody that can crank out 3 songs a week and you are doing them pretty much for the sole purpose of doing film and TV pitches, the songs aren't that precious, and you're probably more willing to let that stuff go because you know that you're going to keep cranking stuff out. And that's what you want to do. You want to crank out a lot of stuff and fill the pipeline. The more stuff you make, the better chance you have of getting stuff signed. Along those lines, here's question number 6. I've joined and started submitting at the beginning of this year. I've been fortunate to have 30 forwards. That's great. Only one of the forwards yielded a callback from a library, and I've signed 2 Qs with them and am anticipating a few more. Does this ratio of 30 forwards to get one good contact sound in the right ballpark? It must be really competitive out there. I'm underlining that. Of course it's competitive out there. Absolutely. Any industry that you want to be successful, whether you want to be, a pro golfer, a Major League Baseball player, an NFL football player, a financial advisor, a salesperson at Nordstrom's, everything